Hello everyone, thank you for joining our webinar today on What's New in SOLIDWORKS 2019. My name is Jared Trotter. I'm one of the application engineers here at Concepts in Production in Amory, Mississippi. And in our webinar today on What's New in SOLIDWORKS, we're going to take a look at just the first section, the first tip of the iceberg here of what we can expect in the software in 2019. This is actually going to be the first in a series of webinars. We're going to break up the what's new functionality here over the next few months. So we hope that you'll not only tune in for this one, but the ones that we have in the coming months. And I'll mention that again at the end of the webinar. So we're going to be looking at part modeling in today's webinar. And we're going to start by looking at the user experience. So as you're working in SOLIDWORKS, we're looking at the functionality that makes it easy to use, that generates less clicks, that enables you to be as productive as possible when you're doing your modeling. So some of the enhancements that we have this year enables us to access our existing designs even faster. We've got some increased functionality with external references and being able to manage those. And then we also have an enhancement to the measure tool, making it more live so that you have better functionality with it and you can do a few more things with it in more context. So I'll go ahead over here and tab to SOLIDWORKS, and I'll start by talking about the welcome screen. You may remember that was introduced last year. You can reference that or open it by either the R key, or you can click the little home icon up here at the top, and you'll remember that you can reference your recent documents up here. But new in 2019, you can actually control how many of those are displayed. You can have up to 100 of your recent documents here. And in addition to being able to show more of your recent documents, there's also a quick filter option now, very similar to what you have in the open dialog box. So you can filter by parts, your assemblies, or your drawings, or a combination of those in order to quickly pull up some of the recent documents that you've been working with. You can also filter by name. So if you know the name of your part, you can just type that in here and it'll pull up the documents that you have, and you can open those really quickly. So this long blue camera is actually the one that I want to work with, but rather than opening it from here, I want to actually open it from down here, because here in the minimized documents here, you'll see that we have increased functionality where if you just mouse over that minimized document, you get a preview of the thumbnail, the name of the part, and even the file path. So I'll go ahead and open up this part, and when we're working with larger assemblies, one of the things that's an enhancement in terms of the user interface is, like I mentioned before, working with those external references. And what we want to take a look at here is the fact that you now have the option, when you have the parent-child dynamic view turned on, you can click on an external reference here in your feature tree, and there's a little icon over here, this little white dot that turns blue when you click on it, and you can break or lock those references. So in this case, we want to just click on the sketch here, and we're going to lock that reference. Now in an assembly, you have multiple parts, and you want to set up relationships maybe between certain parts in a top-down assembly modeling environment. What we also have access to now, when we right-click on the top part of the assembly, we now can choose external references, and we have a new interactive dialog box that displays all of the parts and features that have external references in our assembly. You'll see that once we click on those, that it actually even highlights there in the graphics area. We get the status and the reference entity for all of those external references. Additionally, we'll see that one of the parts that we want to change here, this is the camera baffle rear that we have. There's a circular pattern here that we want to change, and we'll get a closer look at it just by clicking on the part here and clicking isolate. While we still have this dialog box open, we still have access to it. And if we click on this circular pattern here, we'll see that we get a preview because it's actually referencing another part. We instead want to reference the outside of the actual part. So we'll go ahead and break that selected reference there, and we can just close it. When we go to edit that feature, we now just need to select the outside edge here for that circular pattern. And now we've very quickly made those adjustments. So working with your external features is now easier in 2019. Now additionally, we're going to take a look at our notes 3D view here, because what we want to do is modify this assembly to make sure this counterweight is essentially the right size. We'll see there's a note that needs to be 50 millimeters between those two faces. So we're going to modify this dimension here, which is going to be on this particular part. So we're going to change this to be the proper length. But sometimes when you're working in a dimension and you need to take measurements of the existing geometry, in previous years you've had to go into your dialog box and then exit out of it so that you get access to the measure tool. Well, now you can use the measure tool while still in a feature manager, property manager, or dimension dialog box. So we can go ahead and click on our faces here. Let's see. So get our two faces and get that live measurement, and we can use that information and now just go here in our dialog box, and now we can make that live update there. Go ahead and do a rebuild on that so that we get that updated measure tool. So this is going to make it a lot easier to kind of work back and forth between making your measurements and then actually changing your dimensions. So just to kind of recap what we looked at there, we've got our recent documents that we can now have up to 100 of them open or displayed to choose from. We can filter and search by type. We've also got our external references where we can dynamically view those references in an assembly with a new user interface and have that laid out nice in an organized fashion. We can break and lock those individual references, and we can even view only the parts in question, still having access to that isolate button. And then finally, we have our live measure tool that we can use within any command. So with all of those different enhancements, including the minimize document preview, you'll see that we have greater power and ease of use for our everyday workflows, just making things much easier and faster to work with. Next, we want to take a look at our part delighters. So a couple of the big standouts here with our part delighters is that we have access to our mesh geometry that we can use to make solid models, and we can actually use appearances and turn those into actual 3D geometry. So let's go ahead and take a look at our other model here. Take a look at our handle assembly, and this is an example of how in a lot of cases where you have very natural type curves and shapes that are manufactured. Sometimes this is done through sculpting or some other way that gets those natural shapes, but again, those have to actually be manufactured. You have to actually make those parts. So in this case, we want to take a look at how this handle was made, and what we'll do is actually open up the 3MF file that this was generated from. So as we open this up, you'll see that it is a mesh body, a graphics body, and we'll just change the display on that a little bit. And new in SOLIDWORKS 2019, what we can do is get a plane and use the new slicing command. So when we use the slicing command, we're going to split this part up into different sections, and we're going to create intersection sketches here within this slicing command. So we'll specify that we want a certain number of planes, set the distance for them, and we'll get a cross-section preview at these intersections here. You'll see that created a nice organized folder for us, the slice folder that has the planes that were generated as well as the sketch that's associated with them. So we'll go ahead and hide the body now, and we want to go ahead and create a lofted surface from these sketches. And of course you can also use your lofted boss as well. In this case we're going to do a surface because of the next features that we want to show. They're new in 2019. So just get a couple more selections here. And once we have our lofted surface, we actually want to go ahead and split this. So we can just use our front plane here and split this into two surface bodies. And we'll go to our front plane here, create a sketch, and we want to put in a logo that's going to be put onto both of these surfaces here. So we'll just insert that there. And previously we were kind of limited in what we could do with these sketches. We're going to use the projected curve command, and you'll see what we can do now in SOLIDWORKS 2019 that we couldn't do previously. So if we use projected curve there, we've got this sketch. We can do this onto multiple faces, and we can use the bi-directional option as well. And just in one feature we've created this curve onto these additional faces. Now the advantage of this over what we had in previous years is that this sketch is actually two disjoint sketches. So in 2019 you can use open or closed contours that you have multiple ones of in one sketch, and you can use them on multiple faces. So whereas this is one feature, in previous years this would be 4 features. So it makes it a lot faster to manipulate your model and make the design changes that you want. So let's go back over here to our assembly. We're going to make some other changes here as well. So as we hide this component, we'll take a look at this power button, and as we go here and isolate it, we go ahead and edit this part. You'll see that there are actually some holes in this that correspond to the labeling, and we need to go ahead and close these off so that this is a solid watertight model. So new in SOLIDWORKS 2019, there's actually the delete hole command. So we can go ahead to that, and we just need to select one edge on each of these open contours here, and then that'll allow us to close these off. So we've got all of these here, and this should actually allow us to go ahead and close off all of these. Looks like I missed one there, so let's go ahead and go back and get that one. And now this model is watertight. Now as we move further down, the last thing that we'll look at is here with this grip that we have. So this particular grip here was made from a sketch, and we had several surfacing techniques that we had to do to make that. But you'll see that we have several different configurations here, and I'll go ahead and change this display so you can see it a little bit better. We have several different displays, and that's reflective of the fact that in SOLIDWORKS 2019 we can use pictures and sketches in order to create surfaces. So let's go ahead and create one for this knurling operation. You'll see that we've got a texture here, and I'll go ahead and show you, how we do that. So here, this is a picture that's already been brought on here. This is just applied to the face. If we go here and examine that in the advanced tab here, you'll see that you have some different settings to actually control the size of your surfaces here. And what's going to happen is that for this black and white model, whatever's white will actually show up as being closer to the model. What's black will be further out. What we'll do is just go to our solid body here. We'll click on 3D texture, and choose the picture that was projected on there, we can choose our offset distance, and we can also specify the maximum element size to kind of clean this up a little bit, get a little bit better display. And once you have that, you can actually use this for 3D printing. You've got, your full-on model that's just based essentially off of a JPEG image. So that can really quickly enable you to go from a sketch idea to a full-on model. Got some additional part delighters to mention. One is that you can choose the configuration on insert part, which you couldn't do in previous years. So if you have a part that you need to insert, there's a little drop down for your configurations there. You also have your design library block thumbnails. Previously in 2018 and prior, that was just one image there. Now you can have that be updated to something that you prefer. There's also the Hole Wizard hole tolerance. So within the Hole Wizard tool, you can specify the tolerance now that's associated with it. You have the fillets and chamfers that you can use. You can do a partial fillet and chamfer. You'll see how it's going down between, this is the starting point, this is the end point. There's also the deleting holes from surfaces option that you have with the delete hole command. You have projected curves that are enabled now. You can project that onto multiple faces going 2 different directions with multiple contours inside of a sketch. And finally, your 3D textures enable you to go from a simple JPEG image to actual 3D model. So it doesn't take a whole lot to do that. And with all these functionalities, it makes it easy to go from mesh to manufacture, and you've got all these tools to give you greater depth of functionality, enable you to do more with these great tools. So that's actually all that we have for part modeling that we're going to show today. And thank you guys so much for coming to our webinar today and checking this out with us. Like I said, this is the first in a series that we're going to do throughout the next few months. So please make sure to tune in to our next webinar, and we'll make sure to publish that so you guys can see it. The next in our series is going to be looking at assembly modeling part 1 and what additional features we have in SOLIDWORKS 19 with that.